Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of these brand new Mattel Jurassic World Epic Evolution figures, and yet another strike attack, as we have the Guaibasaurus. Now, I don't know for sure if I said the name of this species correctly, because honestly, I am not very familiar with it, and I honestly don't know much about it, but I do have, basic knowledge of what it looks like, and I think Mattel kind of made it look like the dinosaur that it's supposed to be. I mean, sort of. It doesn't look super far off like some of their figures do, but it is a pretty cool looking figure. It's got a kind of fun looking paint scheme to it as well. And you can see the box art and everything is pretty much as it usually is when it comes to the Epic Evolution figures. And then here on the back, you can see an image of the dinosaur, a little sneak peek of the action feature, as well as the images down here showing off the other figures that are in this wave of strike attacks. So let's pop the box open and check it out. So here is our Guaibasaurus, and let's actually bring this down a little bit so we can get more in line with it. And you can see it does look pretty cool. It's definitely not the greatest Mattel figure. That, of course, is not to be expected, but it is a pretty fun looking one. I think, again, it's another one of those instances where we could have used a little paintwork out onto the tail, even if it was just a little hint of that black to kind of polish off the tip of the tail. I feel like it could have made a little bit of a difference, but it still looks pretty cool again for what it is. So as always, let's jump to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see we've got some pretty darn nice looking detailing. The skin texture looks really good. The scale detail in general definitely pops on the sculpt. And we have a very nice dark tone for the face as we have a black. And one good thing about that is as you lead into the eye, you can see the eye is painted with a yellow, but we have a nice black pupil, kind of a slit-like pupil. But this is one of those instances where if they chose to kind of give it the pupil that is the coloration of the head, it works because it's a black. So either way, we get a nice black pupil. You can see the teeth are big and bulky, as you often find for Mattel figures. One thing that is a bit of a bummer, though, you can see that the paintwork is pretty sloppy there around the teeth. It's definitely, the white has run up there onto the jawline. And it looks a little better over here, but still kind of sloppy. So definitely not the best paintwork in that area, but it looks okay. We can see the nostrils sculpted out, the palate sculpted out nicely, and the eye socket is also nicely sculpted. As you lead down to the lower jaw, you have a lighter tone, kind of like a light gray. That looks pretty good. Moving into the mouth, we can see the tongue in there, painted with a nice light pinkish tone. It looks pretty good as well. The Caprasuchus actually had coloration on the inside of the mouth on the upper side. However, this one does not, so that's a little bit of a bummer for this one. Not, the worst thing in the world, but still a little bit of a bummer. As you lead back here into the top of the head, leading into the neck, you start to pick up some quills, and I have actually seen this dinosaur portrayed with quills quite a few times similar to this, so that's kind of okay, I guess. And it looks, decent, definitely gives it a bit of a unique appearance. As you move down a little bit further through the course of the neck, you can see this light tone leads out from the lower jaw and kind of designs through the black, pretty much just cuts right through it there. As you lead down the course of the neck, the black continues to run down, but it abruptly disappears as we lead into the chest. There isn't any kind of a smooth transition, it's just gone. You can see we do have a little area of it here kind of leading back, and then it sort of picks back up again briefly as it sort of outlines that white design that we have moving back, but then both the black and white disappears as we move further back into the stomach. You can see it also kind of runs up here and over the top of the back, but very early on kind of tapers off down toward the side and disappears. And you can see we have some nice looking scale detail there moving along the back of the dinosaur. As you lead down here into the side, you can see the rib cage there shining, which is definitely nice to see. You've also got some pretty nice looking sculpted arms, as well as some nice muscle definition within the arms. And another thing that's really good is the wrists are correctly placed, which is always a great thing to see. I love seeing Mattel get things like that right, because a lot of the time when it comes to Jurassic World dinosaurs, you see the wrists pronated and stuff, and you don't see that here on this one. As you move down into the fingers have some nice scoots. As you move down, if my camera focused, there we go. You can also see the nails are nicely sculpted. Man, it does not want to focus correctly. The nails are nicely sculpted, but they are unpainted here on the hand. It seems like you can see kind of a speckle there on the one, so I guess that means we have a bit of a speckling moving through the course of the figure. As we lead up here, we actually have the Jurassic Facts app code, if I can pull that out, so that you can add this one to your collection if you would like to. There you go. As you move back here into the thigh, you can see that we have more of that greenish tone leading down, but it starts to kind of mesh back and forth with this black, and the black kind of almost has like a flame sort of effect leading out. And you can see as we move down the rest of the leg, the black is the coloration of the leg. There's no other color difference moving down. You can see the thigh muscle is nicely defined, as well as the calf muscle moving down. You can see the knee there in the front of the leg. Very crisp sculpt work on this. And then as you move down into the course of the foot, you can see some scoots moving down the front of the toes. You've also got nails, and because it's a black and it also sports a nice gloss coat to it, the nails actually have a nice, very beautiful painted look to them. And yes, the dew claws as well actually have a painted look. I wonder if this is the first time that a Mattel figure has actually had painted dew claws. I really don't know for sure, but I think there's a pretty good chance that that is the case. Now, I don't know if it actually has technically, painted nails, or if it's just because we have a black that is the coloration of the foot and they've added a gloss coat over it that it looks like it has painted nails. But in my opinion, it does have painted nails and it looks great with them, especially the dew claw. But if we come back over here as we lead up into the tail, you can see again some pretty nice looking skin texture leading out. A little bit of a curve to the tail as you do lead out through the course of the body there. It almost looks like the coloration of the tail is slightly different compared to the coloration of the body, but it's not super obvious. And then as we lead around to the other side, you can see again the head sculpt looks nice. You have the same style of coloration and everything moving down. You're not really going to see too much difference. The arms are in pretty much the exact same position. The only difference really over here is the fact that the leg is leading, whereas the leg on the other side is trailing. And then you lead out again. The tail looks a little different because of the curve and everything on this side. And then, of course, the detailing on the underside looks very nicely done, but there's not really any coloration to the underside at all. It would have been nice to see this black run down just a little bit, but still, it's not the greatest painted figure, but I definitely think it looks really nice. It's a very cool species choice, and overall, a pretty fun-looking figure. As far as articulation goes, of course you have the articulated jaw, but that all has to do with the action feature. You do have the arms that articulate forward and back, and also out away from the body. They can go up about that high. You then have a swivel tail, which you can already see trying to move around as I was trying to articulate that. And then you also have the articulation in the legs, where they can go forward and back. They're a little jerky as far as the movement goes, but they work pretty nicely overall. It's all your standard articulation when it comes to a Mattel figure. You also have the action feature, which you can see is a chomping action feature. Pretty close to what we saw with the Caprasuchus, because again, it's just the jaws chomping, but this time the head kind of goes down, and we have like a biting action feature down toward the ground, like it's trying to bite something on the ground. But it's still a pretty cool action feature overall. As far as a size goes, it's going to be a pretty obvious size range if you are familiar with the Strike Attack figures, but for a length, you're looking at about 7 inches almost on the dot, or around 18 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point is the quills, about 3 inches or just a hair under 8 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Guaibasaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being here next to our Mattel Guaibasaurus. I've heard so many different pronunciations for this species. Again, I'm not positive exactly how you do say it, but you can see again, it's right there in the Strike Attack size range you would expect. And to further show you that, here is a comparison with your standard Mattel Velociraptor, and you can see they are very similar in size overall. The Raptor might be a little bit bigger, but they're very close in size, and at this point, if you are a Mattel collector, you've probably got about 1 million Raptors in your collection, so you should have a pretty good idea of the size of this one, which means we really don't need to do very many comparisons for this figure. So this is yet another really cool release from Mattel, another very cool obscure species, and one thing I really like about this line, the Epic Evolution line, is just how many obscure species they are including in it, and they've really, gone out and found some very obscure species, a lot of which I don't have any figures of in my collection at all, including this one. This is the very first time I've had the pleasure of adding this species to my collection, so definitely really cool, and Mattel can kind of take claim to a lot of that, as they've really provided us with some amazing figures over the years and some amazing species choices. And this one, again, is a very nice choice, and also a really nicely done figure. The sculpt looks great as far as the fine detail goes. It kind of resembles the dinosaur, not perfectly, but it's not too far off either, and that also is a plus. But as you move through the course of the figure, figure, again, the scale detail is really nicely done. It's very vibrant, definitely pops on the sculpt quite beautifully, and overall has a nice little pose to it, kind of with the one leg stepping forward, almost like a classic Mattel sort of pose. We also have some nice paint apps, not the best paint apps, but still pretty nice. The color scheme looks cool, but I think it could have just been a little bit better if we had just added a slight bit of paint out onto the tail. But even without the paintwork on the tail, I still think it looks really cool. And we have a painted dew claw on this, which is crazy because we just never get that. So that is also a plus for this figure. I really would have liked to have seen painted nails on the hands, but it's not the end of the world. The action feature is pretty cool. Again, kind of what you would expect for this type of dinosaur. And you also have some fun articulation, but it's, you know, your standard Mattel articulation. Nothing really too crazy or anything with that. So overall, this is definitely another fun Mattel release and another very cool species that we all get to add to our collection. So if you'd like to pick one up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on Big Bad Toy Store. Unfortunately, they don't have a listing individually for this one, but they have a listing for the entire wave, which does include this. Again, that's how I got mine. So if you'd like to grab this and the other figures from this wave, make sure you check that link in the description. Go grab this very cool figure, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.